A long pending hike in real estate guideline values, an allocation towards metro rail projects and industrial parks, a renewed emphasis on social spending. Some of the key takeaways from Tamil Nadu's state budget tabled on Monday. In fact, the revenue deficit is down 50% in 2 years. That's one of the key headlines coming in from the state budget. Joining me now is the man himself, the Finance Minister of Tamil Nadu, Thiaga Rajan. Mr. Thiaga Rajan, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us here on CNBC TV 18 on the Newsmaker. Let me start by asking you about that big headline that's come in on the revenue deficit, down 50% over the last 2 years. In your speech, you talk about a decline in total revenue expenditure as well as a projected increase in revenue receipts. Now, this is a big one. Explain to us where you've managed to cut expenditure and where you see opportunities for augmentation of revenue.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I must admit that the 62,000 we inherited was the depth of the COVID crisis, so it was probably an exceptional year. But I must also state that for every year after the first incarceration of the former Chief Minister, Ms. Jayalalitha, for every year from 2014 till 2020, that is 1920, the government of Tamil Nadu had been having ever-increasing revenue deficits. So there was a clear slippage of revenues from what used to be 9 to 10% of the GSDP, down all the way to about 6% before the crisis, and then down to 5% after the crisis. We have rectified that some part of the way. We have brought it up to about 6.15% or so, and we still have a long way to go, as I've said in the budget speech. There's still a lot of revenue improvement that needs to happen. And I don't mean necessarily in any new taxes or new levies or anything. As you know, the states are very constrained. We only have indirect taxes and some fees and charges. But in fact, in the actual prevention of leakages, better implementation of systems, better accountability, and so forth. On the revenue side, we had probably some long pending reforms, in particular on the electricity tariffs, which had not been revised for a long time, and also on property taxes, which had not been revised in some cases for 20, 25 years. So under the leadership of our Chief Minister, we were able to augment the revenues, not directly to the state, but to the electricity board and to the local bodies, which in turn helped them provide better services to the consumers and effectively reduce some of our make-whole, kind of loss provisions by a few thousand crores. But the greatest probably improvement was that we have started to put controls, systemic checks and balances, improved audit, electronic monitoring. For example, many of our public sector enterprises had not been audited or not submitted accounts for many years. We have now put in an electronic platform where they have to submit the accounts immediately to the state, and we have strengthened the Bureau of Public Enterprises that looks into that. We have created a new post, Director General of Audit, brought in on deputation an officer from the IAS, and greatly improved the audit mechanisms. We have asked a lot of questions, we have put a lot of data systems in place, and we have greatly increased the efficiency of spending. And that would probably be the reason for this great improvement over 2 years.
So you talk about, plugging leakages, enhancing audits, etc., which has been one of the aspects that has helped you narrow that revenue deficit number by 50% over the last 2 years. But if I were to talk to you about the road ahead, and you acknowledged yourself that there is a long distance to cover, what can potentially be the revenue drivers in terms of augmentation? I also want to understand from you what the contribution has been through TASMAC sales, because that number, I understand, will be put out in the month of April. But what's been the contribution from the TASMAC sales, and what else could you potentially look at? Is monetization of public assets going to be part of the agenda in terms of revenue mobilization?
All good questions. Let me take the last one first. So far, we have not felt the need to consider monetization of any assets. What we are very keen on is PPP model for new projects, new investments, as much for the expertise and the discipline and the market accountability that they bring as for the capital that they would bring and help us accelerate growth. Going back to TASMAC itself, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I have been on the record multiple times saying that I still think that the leakages in TASMAC are very high. Now, these are not like, hypotheses, right? We have quantitative data. What was the excise as a percentage of GSDP every year for the last 15 years? What were commercial taxes pre-GST and post-GST. What has been the contribution of the union share of taxes? All these we have quantitatively, and we can show in very, very precise terms what percentage of commercial taxes as a percent of GSDP we are still missing. And we can show that relative to Tamil Nadu 2 years or 3 years or 5 years or 10 years ago mostly. And we can show that relative to, let's say, Maharashtra or Gujarat or Karnataka, which are the other three large rich states of India. So we know where the leakages are quantitatively. Now we have to break that down by region, by sector, by collection office, and we have to figure out how to plug those gaps. Because let's be very clear, we are short about 3% of GSDP in total revenues compared to, I would say, the fiscal golden period of 2006 to 2011, in the sense that we should have probably 2 to 2.5% more revenue from the state's own revenue, which in this year's GSDP estimate of roughly 25 lakhs, that's about 50 to 62,000 crores. And then another 1% or so from the union share of taxes plus grants in aid. And so that's another 25,000 crores or so. As has been pointed out in many CAG reports in the past, 18, 19, 19, 20, so forth, that even the 14th, 15th Finance Commission's estimates of Tamil Nadu's revenues were underrun by about 75,000 crores in the previous regime. Now we've improved that quite a bit. We've raised the revenues almost 60, 70,000 crores over 2 years. We still have a long way to go.
Let's talk about CapEx, because this has been the focus of the union budget. We've seen a 33% increase as far as CapEx is concerned, and the expectation is that the same will happen at the end of states as well. In this budget, you've announced higher allocations as far as metro rail projects are concerned, industrial parks are concerned. Can you give me an assessment of where things currently stand in terms of CapEx that has already been utilized for the financial year that closes on March 31st? And of course, you're assuming a 15% higher CapEx allocation for FY24.
Yeah, let's just take the long-term perspective on CapEx also, right? If you take the 2006 to 11 regime, where I will start, the CapEx went up more than 100% in the course of 5 years. That's what good regimes are supposed to do. They ran a revenue surplus for the 5-year total period, 3 years of surplus, 2 years of deficit, but the added value was 5 years of surplus. Therefore, 100% of the borrowings plus a bit of revenue surplus went to CapEx, and CapEx went up like 130% or something in 5 years. You take the 2011 to 2021, the 10 years of the previous government, and CapEx barely went up, about 80% in two terms. So in 10 years, it went up maybe 80 to 100%. That was it. So we have come and tried to accelerate the CapEx. And I've got to tell you, we got 2-3 problems. The first problem is the sheer capacity to spend, to build, to have those kinds of skilled contractors seems to have declined. I chair a committee for projects worth 100 crores and more that the Honorable Chief Minister has put in place for us to monitor progress on big ticket projects. And every time I find that we are behind schedule. Now, part of that is our unique weather problem, which is that we lose 2-3 months a year due to the monsoon between September and December. We also had some massive floods in the 2021-22 year. Of course, we also were locked down like many places in the first year of our period, 21-22, second wave, third wave, etc. But our capacity to spend is not where we would like. Capacity to do real hard CapEx, which is another reason why I said I'm looking for PPP. But our ability to fund big ticket items is keeping on increasing. So, we've already increased the allocation to CapEx significantly, probably by, as you say, 15% this year, but over 2 years, probably 30%. And if you look at our medium-term fiscal plan, we plan to almost double the CapEx again in the next 2 years, because what is happening is when the revenue deficit goes down, within our borrowing limit, we're able to allocate much more of that borrowing to CapEx. So when we inherited this government, there was probably 3.5 or so percent of revenue deficit out of 4.61% fiscal deficit. So they were basically putting in a little over 1% of GSDP into CapEx. This year, we're going to end the year at 3% fiscal deficit, of which only 1.23% is revenue deficit. That means our CapEx has gone up to 2.77%, or more than double as a percentage of GSDP. So that's basically what you're supposed to do. The more you control your revenue deficit, you get the room for CapEx investment. We have a lot of projects, But again, I have my own concerns about the ability to scale that rapidly. For example, can we really, as a state, find the partners? And most states have to go through tenders and construction companies and partners. It's not like states have their own PW departments that can do that kind of work, because the work is varied and it comes and goes and the technology keeps improving. The question is, can we almost double our capex in the next 2 years? We need to find better execution models and better PPP models with world-class and like national level good contractors who we need to work with.
I think this is a concern that's been raised previously as well, and you alluded to this. So it doesn't matter whether you aspire to double the capex. If there is a lack of capacity to be able to spend it on the ground, that puts a question mark on your plans. You are saying that some of the big ticket projects are stuck because of the lack of capacity at this point in time. So how do you remedy this? What kind of
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. Sorry, let me. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so let me be very clear. The big ticket projects, the biggest ticket projects are usually not limited by capacity, because there are only so few companies in the world that can build metros, right? I mean, that's not the concern for me. So if I go to metro projects or massive road projects, hundreds of crores, those are relatively straightforward because there are only so few global players that can do it. Those, if anything, were capacity or capex were capital constrained because we're not getting the agreement for the 50% union government share in time, or there's some paperwork delay in getting the AIIB or the World Bank or somebody's funding to come through, some paperwork delay. It's not long, but I'm saying those are the niggling problems we have. And we always, whenever we run short on the construction capacity, we always go ahead and fund those big ticket projects more and more. That we have done 2 years in a row, just so we haven't had the total capex down. If we can't do the execution ourselves, then we go and fund the actual big ticket projects with greater, faster loans or faster equity, even though the union has not matched its 50% share. So that's always kind of the buffer, the kind of shock absorber. What I'm talking about is the ability to do large-scale drinking water projects, drainage, sewage, flood relief projects, like state highway level projects. These are the things which I think, because the capex as a percentage of GSDP dropped so dramatically over 10 years, then there wasn't a lot of idle capacity waiting around. So this is a question of building up that capacity in our partners step by step. And I'm not saying it's a huge problem. I'm saying it's probably a 5 to 10% of the total intent problem. It was relatively high in 21-22 for various reasons, including COVID and the flood. It got better in 22-23. It will get better still in 23-24. And for more than a year now, in this committee of 100 crore plus projects oversight that I chair, I have been stressing to the senior IAS officers, the committee consists of all the departments that have large capex projects, that you better start thinking about these partnerships and this capacity and these relationships, because we know that the faster we control the revenue deficit and improve the fisc, and as our economy grows, we are going to need building capacity that's 2 times, 3 times what it was when we took office. So we are thinking ahead and we're planning for it. It doesn't, a lot of these things, at best, they're like Markov chain-like processes. At best, they're indifferent to how you got here. But you still can only go so many places from here. I cannot build capacity overnight, right? The system has its own inertia. So it's not like rolling the die where one time can be 3 and one time can be 6. If I started at this capacity, within 1 year, I can only come here, then here, then here. I can't go from here to here in 1 year. Sure. That's just the way the system is.
No, fair point. You were talking about the center, and there have been some specific asks from the center of the state. And let me start by asking you about the state's request. Jyotiraditya Sindha, the aviation minister, requesting the state of Tamil Nadu to cut VAT. You're one of the 8 states where VAT on aviation turbine fuel continues to be high, between the 20 to 30% mark. The expectation was that perhaps you would move on that. No chance of that happening?
Yeah, I will defer to the Minister of Commercial Taxes, which is not my department. I don't know what all discussions have happened. I do know we have to raise the revenue from somewhere. There must be some thoughtful discussion going on. I'm not particularly involved in that particular issue.
Another issue that is still uncertain is the decision of the government to ban online gambling. Now, you moved a bill. It was returned by the governor because the governor felt that the bill lacked legislative competence. What is the plan on that front from here on?
Look, far be it from me to unnecessarily politicize the office of governor, but I think this governor, it has been clear, sees himself as some kind of constitutional expert more than any other governor has ever been in Tamil Nadu, which is a bit shocking for a former police officer who has neither studied the law nor ever sat in a legislature. And this is not the first time. He's keeping on sending bills back talking about legislative competence and all that. I just see as obstructionist. I don't want to say much more than that. The legislature unanimously approved the NEET bill and was sent to him, and he finally signed it, sent it to the president. The cabinet has made the decision, which has been publicly recorded, that we are going to reintroduce the online gaming ban bill. Which, it's a very technical bill. It says things that have pseudo-random number generators and are certified as games of chance because of the scientific. I'm an operations research major. I studied and taught stochastic processes, so I know a bit of what I'm talking about. The bill is very solid. You get any scholar to opine on it. It's very solid. In fact, yesterday, the union minister somewhere has opined that it's within the rights of Tamil Nadu to pass such a bill. So this bill will get unanimously approved by the legislature in the next few days. It will get sent back to this governor. Let's see whether his brilliance and expertise extends beyond that of the union ministry and of the elected legislature and ministers yet again.
So you intend to move the bill forward once again. But let me ask you this in the context of what's happening at the GST Council, because this is a matter that has been with the GOM for several months now. There has been no forward movement on this issue on taxation as far as online gambling, etc. is concerned. Not just this aspect, but outside of gambling, what is the expectation now in terms of big ticket items that you believe the GST Council needs to address?
Well, let's first go to this GOM on gaming, horse racing, and casinos, right? Well, it actually submitted its report. And then quite surprisingly for me, because of the indulgence of the Honorable Finance Minister of the Union of India, she allowed for it to be taken back and re-looked at. Re-looked at didn't arrive at any different outcome, to be honest. I mean, I don't want to prejudge. But, the committee, and this is not a committee that has any political differences, right? The chair of the committee is the Honorable Chief Minister of Meghalaya, who's in the BJP coalition. Senior member of the committee is the Honorable Finance Minister of the government of Uttar Pradesh, which is a BJP government. So it's not like there's any political differences here. At the end, after going around and around, we came back to the same thing. And in fact, I gave a written submission that was a very clear situation based on some expert advice that I got, which said, if you insist on trying to tax kind of platform fees or gross gaming revenues separately from the so-called payout or, the net payout stuff, then the simplest way is to have two accounts ab initio. On the date of collection of the revenue, you split the revenue into two pools, service fee / platform fee / gross gaming revenue, call it what you want, and pay the GST on that and take it into your own account and put the rest of the money in escrow account, and from the escrow account pay out all winnings and let that be subject to TDS and income taxation. Therefore, you have two different schemes, direct taxation, indirect taxation. None of this was acceptable to the other members of the committee. As I say, apart from political differences, this is including the BJP, including the TMC, including everybody. So the most likely outcome in my expectation is that the same report will go back that says there's no consensus. Basically, we go back to the original report and say tax the entire thing at 28%. Now the question is, last council meeting, it didn't come because the Honorable Chief Minister of Meghalaya was the chairperson who should have presented the report, was tied up in state elections in Meghalaya. Now that's over and he's back as the Chief Minister, presumably back as the council member and the GOM convener. So my best guess is it will get placed again. Beyond this, of course, there are many different things I think can be done to improve the GST's functioning as well as the GSTN's functioning. I've had a lot of technical discussions with the experts. You may know the Supreme Court lawyer, Arvind Dattar, heads a committee for us, which we constituted after we came to power, a committee on federal fiscal relations. He and the legal community have given us a lot of inputs. I've got a lot of inputs from GST officers, from commissioners, so forth. We had the first in-person meeting of the GOM on systemic reforms in Maharashtra, chaired by the Honorable Deputy Chief Minister, Mr. Fadnavis there. myself, Honorable Deputy Chief Minister of Haryana, through Chautala, all of us participated, others came in by VC. We think there's a lot of scope for improvements. I hope to have something prepared, and the next GST Council meeting, as you know, the last one was supposed to be in Madurai. Unfortunately, we were not in the capacity to host at that time because of our own by-election and some other, short lead time. We know the next one will be in Madurai. By then, we hope to have something to show, ideally through the GOM on systemic reforms, if not at least as a submission. I genuinely believe, as many kind of statutory limitations as there may be in the GST, operationally, systemically, there is so much headroom for improvement that this system could perform twice or thrice as good as it does now, both from a federal perspective as well as from a compliance and ease of actually complying perspective, as well as a revenue recognition and timing perspective. I think all of these can be greatly improved.
Well, we look forward to your submission. But, since we are talking about the states and the centre and federal relations, I also want to talk to you about what is expected now is the setting up of the 16th Finance Commission, which will take place at some point later this year. Now, you have raised concerns on the horizontal devolution, which is based, of course, on the income distance. And I remember you saying that it's not the money that you begrudge, but it is the lack of progress. Now, what is your ask in terms of change? What is it that you would like to see being changed in terms of the way that the Finance Commission looks at devolution to states, horizontal and vertical?
Yeah, please give me about 3 minutes. I just want to touch it in three perspectives. The first is, in every federal society, there's always a transfer of funds from the better off to the less well off. We welcome it. We're good patriots. We love it. The problem is that in most other federal systems or within the country, let's say the United States, the rich New York's, California's compared to the North Dakotas, Missouris, the European Union, the rich Western European countries compared to the Italy's, Greece's, Portugal's, the China, the coastal rich provinces compared to the hinterland. In most of these places, the transfers narrow the gap. You find the poor coming up and the rich kind of slowing down so that they get closer together. 25 years or 30 years of finance commissions in India, we have not only not seen the gap narrow, we have not seen the gap stabilize, we have not seen the gap widen, we have seen the gap accelerate in its widening. That means the rich are getting really rich and the poor are getting much, much poorer, or they're not coming up at all enough. So the gap between the well-off and the not well-off is rapidly accelerating. So then I asked the question, at the 15th Finance Commission itself, I said, if part of your ambition is equity, that's what they said, they want equity, they want people to have somewhat similar lives, have enough support, then you have been failing miserably. That means two things are wrong. One, the way you measure progress is wrong, and the way you incentivize progress is wrong. And I said, both of these, you're taking too long-term a perspective. You're taking 5 years, by which time everything is already a fait accompli and there's nothing you can do about it. So what I suggested back then, I'll suggest again now. I said, number one, make the devolution formula not a fixed formula for 5 years, but variable performance based for year over year. And then second, make those performance variables something that is actually in the control of the government rather than an outcome at the end of a year or 2 years. For example, I said, the percentage of girls that are enrolled in school at the age of 5, make that the higher that gets, the more money you get. The percentage of girls that get menstrual health support so that they can continue their education past adolescence, make that a target, and the higher you get, the more money you get. The percentage of girls that graduate from high school, make that a target, and the higher you get year over year, the more money. So there are measures that we know beyond doubt that if these measures improve, then for sure the economy is going to improve later. You're going to have more equitable, more knowledgeable, more productive, more kind of supported, more empowered citizens in the society. Therefore, you'll get a better economy. So why are you focusing on distance to actual target, which is too lagging indicator and measure? Why don't you take leading indicators or percentage of vaccination? Or you pick. I mean, women happens to be the thing that we have learned the most in Tamil Nadu. Empowering women is by far the single best thing. But there could be others. Look for interim measures and give interim awards and make those variable. And that's already in my submission to the 15th Finance Commission. I will reiterate those broad principles to the 16th Finance Commission.
Well, as and when the 16th Finance Commission is set up, we will, of course, see which direction it chooses to take in terms of the terms of reference. But let me end then by asking you talked about indicators, and you have acknowledged in your budget speech that we are in challenging times. Of course, global economic volatility will impact not just market sentiment, but economic sentiment and business confidence. At this point, what are you most concerned about? And in terms of investments, every state announcing, Karnataka announcing an investment from Foxconn, Telangana announcing similar sort of MOUs being inked, and so on and so forth. What is the outlook for Tamil Nadu in terms of investments? Where do you hope to draw investments in from?
Yeah, I would say Tamil Nadu is already one of the most industrialized states, and particularly in the MSME sector and in the percentage of people or the number of people employed in manufacturing, Tamil Nadu is far ahead of most states. So, in fact, you saw the statistic, I think 40% of all women employed in the manufacturing sector in India, 40% are in Tamil Nadu alone. This is, again, testament to our empowerment of women. I think the potential is limitless. I was just at a conclave in Delhi where I agreed with the former Niti Aayog chairman, Mr. Amitabh Kant, that this is India's moment, right? The global macro picture, both politically and economically, is such that India is kind of the cynosure of all eyes. People want to divest from China. The scale, both economically and demographically, of India is so high they cannot think anywhere else. It's going to be a big market. It's a reasonable market, and it has a huge talent pool. So India is the place that everybody wants to be. Now the question is, are we making it conducive for them? And making it conducive for them is not mostly about what discounts and what other things you give. It's about having the right talent pool. It's about having the right climate. It's about being welcoming, having the ease of doing business, the laws, the systems, the dispute resolution, all that workable and understandable and therefore calculatable risk-wise. This is the kind of overall context. And in fact, in Tamil Nadu, at my request, the Cabinet commissioned a study. What have all those people we gave incentives to, have they come here, have they delivered the results we expected, and what is it they think is the biggest factors driving their decision to invest here or build factories here as opposed to somewhere else. And all these variables that I told you, connectivity, infrastructure, talent pool, ease of doing business, global airports, ports, etc., all these feature a lot. So in natural terms, Tamil Nadu is in a good place. We need to be doing a lot more networking, a lot more marketing, a lot more connectivity. And I think that, while we've got a decent share till now, our global economic advisors, in particular, Dr. Thiaga Rajan, Dr. Arvind Subramanian, and Dr. S. Narayan, former Union Finance Secretary, have been really pushing us to make some major reforms and constitute some empowered committees and stuff like that. It's under consideration by the Chief Minister. I think we'll announce some steps right after this budget to actually accelerate that pace of connectivity with the world and drawing investments. It is India's moment. Every state needs to do this. It's not about Tamil Nadu. It is India's moment. And as much as the union would like to think that they drive everything, in fact, the action happens in the states. Yesterday, Dr. Suman Berry was here, the new Niti Aayog vice chairman, and he said the same thing to the chief minister. He said, development happens in the states, and that's a fact. So the states need to step up big time. We're certainly looking forward to doing our part. The union can facilitate for us. That was one of the discussions I had with Dr. Jaishankar, the EAM, Honorable EAM, when I met him a few days ago in Delhi. And he was also of the same opinion that this is a golden opportunity for us and that the state should be encouraged in every way possible. And he offered to support us in any way he can. And we look forward to that.
Let me very quickly ask you if you can give us a glimpse of what we can expect. You said post-budget now, some reforms which have been suggested by the former RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan, by the former Chief Economic Advisor Arvind Subramaniam and the former Finance Secretary are likely to be implemented or announced. A quick glimpse of what we can expect, one or two of the big-ticket ideas that you intend to take forward?
Yeah. No, they are likely to be acted upon. I didn't say they're likely to be announced. And the suggestions were pretty straightforward, right? Make it more effective, more conducive, more action-oriented, that if people come, they can get their concerns addressed and go straight to implementation as quickly as possible. It's not rocket science. It just says, maybe you should streamline your processes, maybe you should get a bunch of people who can pull the trigger immediately. Agreed? Go to action. Not then go through the bureaucratic paperwork and stuff like that. It's reasonable, sensible ideas that just accelerate and accelerate the outcome and reduce the time between intent MOU and investment and project execution. We just need to collapse that. That's really all it's about.
Finance Minister Thiaga Rajan, always a pleasure. Appreciate you joining us here on the Newsmaker to take us through the details of the budget that you've presented for the state, but more importantly, the road ahead in terms of reform and execution. Always a pleasure. Appreciate your time.